Hey yo, what's good coders? This is Bagare and we are back with another video where we simplify these coding concepts. So in this video, we'll be focusing on user authentication. So we'll be creating the backend for that. So if you're new to the channel, please hit the like, share, and subscribe button. And I would recommend that you code along with me, right, to grasp the most out of this video. So now, first and foremost, we'd want to create our tools folder and copy over our hash password function that we created on our previous video. You'll find it down in the link in the description, I meant to say. Okay, so what we're gonna do is say this is a tools folder. In the tools folder, we'll want to add a class, and this class will be password, right? So this will be for the password. Then we'll go to our actual program where we created this function, and inside this class, we'll paste that function over here, and then we'll make it a public static, right? We'd want to like import the system security cryptography and the system text. Right, then save that. Now we want to actually create our controller. So our controller will be our user controller. So this is going to be an API. Let's see. Let's say this is users controller. All right, yeah. So we've actually created our controller. So first and foremost, what we'd like to do is actually import our models, right? Or include our models. So this is to do service dot models, right? So then what we would also want to do is actually now say private is private read only, and then we want to use our to-do app data context, which is from when I say underscore data context. Yeah. So now we want to create our actual constructor to actually inject our data context, right? Our context. This is actually users controller, right? And actually, here we'd want to take in like our to do data context and the context, right? So we're gonna say this is equal to underscore context equals to that. All right. So we've actually initialized our context. So what we want to do is actually now create a post method. So we first want to actually create a function for our login, right? So this will be a post, HTTP post, and then we'll create like a route to our endpoint. So this will be called login, right? And then actually create now our actual function. So this is going to be async task and then I action result. Okay, I action result and then user login, right? And then we'll just now start by actually returning you are, are logged in, right? Yes. So this is fine. Over there, we can just run this and actually test it in Postman if it actually does work, right? So what we'd want to do is come to our Postman and then actually create our endpoint, right? So this will be like our request. So here we've actually set up like our environment, the space URL for that, and then this will be post space URL, and then the users log in. That's actually our endpoint. So if we actually set that to a post and hit that endpoint, let's see what we get. So this returns to us that your user you are logged in, right? So we know that our endpoint actually works. So now what we actually need to do is actually now create the functionality to log in the user. So first and foremost, we want to pass in something in our request body. So how we do that is actually pass body here, and then this will be from users, and this is our user, right? Um, so how we do it is we'll have var db user, right? So this is gonna be a user we're gonna be grasping from actually our database, right? So this will then be from our context dot users dot where wanna get away you, right, arrow function u dot username, right, is equal to this user we are getting from the body dot username. So the username that they're gonna enter from their front end, we want to get in that username and the password. So we want to say u dot password, right, equals to user password. And then we want to get this as first or default. But there's something that we need to also take into consideration. And it's the fact that the password is actually hashed, right? So how we can do that is actually either like create a string with this password, right? And then for the password, we'd want to say password dot hash password. Oh, so in order for us to use that password, we need to like import. So it's using to do service dot tools, right? Because that password function is in our tools or password class. And then we'll say dot password, and then we'll pass in this password we're getting from our user, right? This is user, not users. I think that's fine. All right, let me just stop this. So what this will happen is as we pass in our request, then we'll pass in this password here, hash it, and actually get the password. Now, instead of getting that, we're just gonna say password. Or we could have said the user password equals to the hash of the password that's coming in from the request. Either way. So then how we'll then do this is actually check if the users, the DB user, which is the user that exists in our databases now, we want to return a bad request, right? Bad request. So this bad request will say user name, this username or password is incorrect, right? Reason why we say username or password is incorrect, we don't want the user to actually know what they actually did enter wrong. So if we tell them that the username is wrong, then they might want to fix that. If we tell them that the password is wrong, they will try multiple times to actually try to find the password. So we don't want to give them clues. Okay, so next thing that we want to do is actually say if the user, so else if this user, right, if this user actually exists, we want to then return db user, db dot, no, db user, right? So this is actually if the user actually does exist in our database, right? db user, that's what we want to return, right? So let's actually test this. Uh, let's see if this actually works, right? So what we will do, we go to our body raw data, and we want to pass in that as a JSON. So we'll say this is a username, right? Bug array at gmail.com, right? and then password, this will equal to 123. I don't know, 123. Let's see what this will give us. Username or password is incorrect. What's the password? 123 password. Let's see. I don't know what the password is. Oh, did we get something? No, I don't think so. The user field is, oh, sorry, that's supposed to be a string, right? Uh, right. So let's see. Username or password, it's still incorrect. So while we have something working, but yeah, so let's now carry on and move on to like our actual registration, and then I'll show you what mistake that I made in this endpoint, right, and actually how to fix it. It's not necessarily a mistake, but it's actually something that could help you make your actually like write maybe, should I say, better code, or yeah, or help with speed, right? Yeah, okay. So what you then want to do is actually then say here as HTTP post method, right? And then this will be um, register, right? So this is your register function. Then you want to say public async task I action result. This I action result is registration. User registration. Should have just said user register or register user. Anyone. Okay, this is just a task, and then just return. Okay. Okay, yeah. And you might actually see what I didn't do, right, actual um on the actual login here, because if something goes wrong, then our API will just crash, crash. Yeah, no matter how you say it. So yeah, if you actually do know, just fix that as you code along, right? But I'll also fix it if I don't forget. So, okay, right. So what do you want to do is actually do the same thing over here. We want to pass in like some sort of like a from body, right? And then this is user, right? This is what we're getting from our user, right? And then we want to follow the same logic here, right? To actually get this user, right? But obviously, when we get a user, right, from the DB, we just want to see if this user actually exists in our database, right? So if this DB user, right, does not equal to null, right? So if this DB user does not equal to null, then you want to return a bad request, because you can't register users with the same username, right? So we want to say a bad request, which then says username username already exists in the database, right? Yeah, so this will say this username already exists. No, not in the database. Username already exists, right? Else, so if this username doesn't exist, then we want to do all these jiggly nice stuff, right? So what do we want to do then? So we want to say, okay, if the user doesn't exist, then what we want to do is actually create a user which is equal to user. Okay, what we want to do is actually first encrypt our password, right, from this body. user.password, right, equals, so this password will equal to password of this user that's coming in, right? And then we want to say this user dot active, we want to set this guy to 1, to say this user is active. And then we have a user role. I don't think we have a role here, right? Now, we don't have a user role. We just want to set this guy to 1, right? What next do you want to do? So we've set up a password. The username is already there. Uh, Now the next thing we want to do is actually try to save this in the DB. So context dot users context dot users, right, dot add, oh man, add this user, because we want to add this user, right? And then we want to see this context dot save changes, right? Save changes. Why? Let's see. What did we do now? Okay. So when I say this context dot save async, I think this is a better one. Yeah. When I save async. Yes. So what we want to do is say if we have saved, and then we want to return user is successfully registered, right? All right. So what we then want to do is actually now test this endpoint. I don't know how this one is gonna go, but we'll actually see. So this says this username equals to that, and if that is actually is in the database, username already exists, else just add a password, and that and just add that to the DB. Let's actually do some testing if this actually works. So when I add another request, I want to rename this to register. Want to rename this to login, right? So this guy is login, this guy is register, register, right? And then in our body, this is row JSON, and then we want to say username, our username equals to I don't know, I think this already exists in my DB. Bug array, and bug array at gmail.com, right? And then password, right? Why do I keep on forgetting? Password word. Come on, man. Password equals to an easy or difficult password. Let's set it a difficult password. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Very secure. Okay, let's now test this endpoint. So, what does it say? You have successfully registered a new user. Let's copy this and actually try to log in, right? So if we try to log in and paste that, let's see what we have. This says expected depth to 0, and that's with that. Okay, there was a mistake. Yeah, with our JSON. So this says, okay, it returns to us our user ID, username, password, active, and then these tasks. So what we want to do is actually when we log in, we actually want to filter some data that we actually don't want, right? To give back to the user upon logging in. The only thing we probably want to do is actually give them their username, their user ID, and actually check if they are active or not, right? Or if they've deactivated their account, right? We don't necessarily have to give them this task, which this could on itself cause like some sort of like circular referencing. So that's why we actually have to select the data that we have only need to return back to the user, right? So how we do that is actually we want to select, right, specific data. So we'll say we want you, right? You can just give it anything equals to this new object we're creating. So now we only want to give it a user ID, right? U dot user name u dot active, right? Active, right? So that's the only stuff that we want because we don't want to just return complex data, right? So what we then want to do is come here, run that, and actually now let's test it. Now we see our endpoint only returns to us our username. Uh, it returns the username, user ID, and active, right? If the user is active or not. But there's also another issue that I made here is if this thing actually fails, then what we then will get from this endpoint is that like it'll actually crash like our API, right? And which is not something we want. So if like for instance I commented that out, right? Let's go then try to do that, then like this would have crashed, right? And which is not a good thing, right? So what we then want to do is actually then set something up, right? Which is like adding like a try catch. So the try catch and then exception e, and this will then return not no. This will also return a bad request. Bad request, bad request, and then in this bad request we'll just say e then dot message, right? Yes, and then just copy all this code and put it here. So if we catch any error in this section, we'll just go to this exception and actually return the error, right? So that's good. Now we'll also do the same thing here, right? We want to add try catch, and then we just want to say exception ex, right? And then just come here. Then we want to return that over there, and then we want to just have that, right? Okay, that's pretty good, right? That is actually pretty good. So this will then say, okay, do we have to await? I think we have to await saved changes, right? Um, this is just going to be ex and that, and then yeah, that's actually what we need. So let's now try testing our register and see what will happen. All right. Ooh, nice. Let's try testing register. So if we try to test the register, what would happen? Register with the same credentials. This should tell us that our user already exists. Yes, username already exists. So we can't necessarily create that, right? Even if we can give it another thingy, then that wouldn't work, right? If we try to log in with the wrong credential, okay, let's try this. Let's try this. That's not even working. Okay. Um, comment that. So let's try to log in with like our wrong credentials. So this will just say username or password is incorrect, right? Which is a good sign, meaning that here we can actually handle what we're getting, right? Um, so what do you want to do? Yeah. So with all that being said, I think we have created like our register user and our login. So if you like the video, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, peace.